Hello and welcome to Bread and Thread, a podcast about food and domestic history. I'm Liz.
And I'm Hazel. We are two friends who studied archaeology together and love history, especially domestic history, as much as we love making things and trying things out. So what have you been up to?
I bought a kilo of honey today.
That is certainly an acquisition. What are you going to do with the kilo of honey?
Well, after the success of making beer, we've decided we're going to try and make blueberry mead.
Oh my goodness. Okay, I suspected mead, but like blueberry mead. How?
Yeah, well, we have a lot of blueberries at the moment. I'm not sure how we ended up with like multiple bags of blueberries.
Presumably they came from somewhere.
Yeah, like we were probably going to do a crumble or something and then just didn't. So, blueberry mead, why not?
Yeah, why not? That sounds delicious.
Especially since there is a chance of being able to go to a folk thing in the summer, so starting mead now means that it'll be ready then.
It's mead and hope.
It is.
I hope you will save some for me.
Well, obviously.
Amazing.
What have you been up to?
My apple dyeing came out quite well, I think. So I was experimenting with different kinds of natural dyes, and a few weeks ago we pruned our apple trees, and so I stripped the bark off the prunings because you can dye with that. You can also dye with the leaves of the apple tree, but we don't have leaves right now. So the bark comes out several different colors depending on how you modify it, apparently. But I just did the standard one, and you don't need to use a mordant or like any fixative because of the tannins in the bark apparently act as a mordant, which is cool. Yeah, so it comes out orange, and so I dyed a piece of cotton, a fairly big piece of cotton, so like enough for, I think I'm going to make a skirt, and it came out a really nice like peachy color, which yeah, I really like it. I'm just like really excited that it worked.
That is very cool.
Yeah, it feels like being a witch with magic potions and like cooking things up in a cauldron, except I don't have a cauldron, so it's a saucepan, which is not quite as exciting. But
I mean,
still,
what is a saucepan if not a small cauldron?
that is true, and I feel like any good magic potion would be improved with use of an electric hob.
Definitely.
But yeah, that was really cool. It did not smell great, let me tell you that. I kind of didn't realize how the kind of odors that might arise when you boil plant materials, which now that I say that sounds obvious, but
I mean, there is a reason these sorts of trades were often pushed outside the city walls.
yeah, I think we discussed that in the Tyrion Purple episode. Like, dyeing was often one of the smellier trades.
Yeah, it's like them and tanners that are, you just go over there.
Yeah,
and we'll be over here.
Thank you very much. Like, you're doing good work, but don't come over here. Yeah, so that's kind of a success, I think. I'm making biscotti tonight.
Ooh.
This time I'll try not to overbake it like I did last time and end up with too much crunch.
I mean, that's impressive given the normal texture of biscotti.
Yeah, I know it is supposed to be the crunch central, but like I feel like I somehow managed to make it. I don't know. It was a slight danger to teeth.
So, I believe you are continuing our theme from last time.
Yeah, indeed. So, moving on from chocolate drinks, which is what Liz talked about last time, I'm going to be talking about solid chocolate, so like chocolate bars and things in other forms. Yeah, so these are a later invention. So as Liz said in the last episode, for much of its history of being consumed, chocolate was a drink. And it didn't become used in bars until the first half of the 19th century. So this is starting fairly late in the history. So I'm gonna kind of pick up where you left. Well, I guess not where you left off, because you gave history of stuff up to the present day. But yeah, if you want to know,
we're in chocolate houses times.
Yeah, basically. So if you want to know like the exciting ancient history stuff, go back and listen to the last episode. I'm going to pick up from the 19th century. So at this point, chocolate is quite popular in Europe and in North America as well. And you've got cocoa houses where people can go to drink chocolate. And chocolate is also being mixed with milk and sugar at this point as well to make it taste nice.
And all sorts of other weird stuff. Again, listen to the last episode.
Yeah. So people have figured out that adding sugar to the chocolate drink makes it taste delicious. But it wasn't until 1847 that the first chocolate bar was invented. But this was made possible by an invention in 1828 called the chocolate press, invented in Amsterdam in 1828. And this does exactly what it says. It would press the chocolate beans, the cocoa beans, and extract the cocoa butter
from
the beans.
That's the good stuff.
Yeah, the good stuff. The natural, the fat that is in the cocoa beans. It would extract that, and it would leave cocoa powder, the fine powdered beans. And this meant that, well, it meant that cocoa powder could now be used in baking, and also chocolate, which was previously more of a high class thing, now was more affordable because you could buy cocoa powder and you didn't have to have all this like fancy chocolate making stuff. You could just take the powder and mix it with water or milk. But then also it meant that the fat could be recombined into the chocolate water at a measured amount to sort of smooth out the texture. So that created the conditions. This is very dramatic. Created the conditions for the first chocolate bar. So this was in the 1840s, at a time when the price of sugar was lowering, and there was increasing competition between confectionery companies. So everyone is trying to invent something new, get something new out, and then also the people are really getting in on this whole chocolate thing, being that it's now much more popular as a drink, and so more cocoa beans around in Europe, and so
because we're full like industrial revolution at this point, aren't we? So it's like, how can I get rich from making the same thing over and over again?
Pretty much, like, okay, how can I transform this chocolate drink that everybody loves into like an edible product, like something you can carry around with you and eat? And Fry's, the British company Fry and Sons, achieved this in 1847 when they recombined the cocoa butter and the chocolate liquor, which is apparently what the chocolate water mix is called, with sugar, and put it in molds to set. And that was like kind of the first edible chocolate bar. And it was kind of a dark chocolate type situation. Milk chocolate didn't come into it until 1875, when
that is a longer gap than I would have thought.
It is, yeah. It's a while. I mean, you would have thought. But
because people would be used to having it with milk, presumably from drinking it.
Yeah, people were drinking it with milk, and so I'm not sure exactly why, but I think it's something to do with it's more difficult to combine the milk with the heat and have it set, because
that makes sense, because milk is temperamental, isn't it, when you're heating it?
Yeah, because when the first milk chocolate was developed, it was using condensed milk. So I think it has to do with the milk conditions. So yeah, it was a Swiss confectioner, Daniel Peter, who developed the first solid milk chocolate bar using condensed milk, and so that kind of makes the chocolate sweeter, I guess. I mean, yeah, like the difference between dark and milk chocolate.
And especially if you're using condensed milk, because that stuff is quite sweet, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, so it makes the chocolate a lot sweeter. So now you have dark chocolate and milk chocolate. Yeah, so Fries also actually invented the Easter egg. And that was in 1873, so before the milk chocolate. But again, now that edible chocolate was a thing, obviously everyone's getting in on it. And not too long after the invention of the solid chocolate bar, there was actually quite a lot of variety available. Like all of the confectionery companies basically just went, this is going to be big. Like we need to get some of this chocolate pie. And yeah,
chocolate pie.
Chocolate pie. And so Fries, now needing an edge, had this idea to do with Easter. So people have been decorating eggs at Easter for centuries. It was a very popular tradition. But Fries were the first to make a chocolate Easter egg. And as we know, that really caught on.
Yeah, I ate one today.
Oh, amazing. What kind?
Cadbury's Twirl.
Yum.
Oddly relevant for Fries, because I think they bought Fries at one point, didn't they?
They did, in fact. That is what I'm going to mention next, because after Fries merged with Cadbury's, they ramped up. Well, Cadbury ramped up Easter egg production and made a bunch of different kinds, and then it really took off, going into the early 20th century, and yeah, I guess the rest is history. It really did become super popular. Yeah, so within 50 years after the invention of the solid chocolate bar, just all these many kinds of chocolate you could get, and going into the early 20th century, yeah, it was a lot more affordable, and there were so many more different kinds, and it became I guess the go-to for if you want to give a present to someone, or if you're a bit sad, if you're really happy, just whenever. Chocolate is there for you.
It is. It's a friend.
It is a friend. Yeah, so interestingly, milk chocolate has kind of been the most popular historically. Dark chocolate is now becoming a lot more popular because it's marketed as being better for you, because it's not mixed with as much sugar and milk.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, dark chocolate it's produced with more cocoa solids, so usually contains 50% or more cocoa solids. and it's mixed. There's no milk in it usually. You use the cocoa butter as the fat content. So it's obviously a lot less, still sweet, but like less sweet than a milk chocolate, which in the EU, under EU regulations, any product labelled as milk chocolate must contain at least 25% cocoa solids. However, it was agreed in 2000 that the UK, Ireland, and Malta can go down to 20% in any milk chocolate product. Whereas in the EU, anything under 25% is apparently normally labelled as family milk chocolate.
How odd.
Yeah. I don't know why.
I've seen bars that say like chocolate flavored candy bar and stuff like that, mostly like US imports which have less cocoa. And I don't know, they always taste kind of like bad advent calendar chocolate.
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's in a lot of products here as well. That things like really cheap chocolate chip cookies and stuff that it will say contains chocolate flavored pieces or something, and I think that means it's got a bit of cocoa in it, but like not enough.
Less than 20%, presumably.
Yeah, in the US it's 10%. That you can label
and
it.
And that's why their chocolate is worse.
Controversial statement. I don't want to start a transatlantic chocolate war on this podcast. Because I
know we have a Canadian patron. If you know what the rules on amount of cocoa in Canada are, I would be intrigued. Let me know.
That would be interesting, yeah, because I know that Hershey's chocolate has a particular taste, and a lot of people really like that. So I'm not going to weigh in on this one.
I just have strong chocolate opinions.
I'm sure a lot of people do. White chocolate, however, contains cocoa butter, but no cocoa solids, therefore making it not actually technically chocolate. There you go.
It's another controversial chocolate thing that though, is it white chocolate?
It is. I mean, yeah, technically there is part of the cocoa bean in it, but not chocolate. And
I mean, there's also part of the cocoa bean in like moisturizers, so you've got to draw the line somewhere.
That's true. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I like white chocolate in moderation, but I've never felt the urge to eat an entire bar of it, really.
I think I only really like it as like I like white hot chocolate, but I wouldn't just like eat a Milky Bar.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, let us know if our controversial chocolate opinions.
I mean, I know Nick will disagree because Nick loves white chocolate.
Awesome. Okay, well, tweet your unpopular chocolate opinions at us and let us know. And in 2017, ruby chocolate appeared. So that's made from the red cocoa bean, and it apparently has like quite a distinctive taste as well. I didn't know that existed before.
It has like a deeper flavor to it.
Okay, have you tried it?
I've had it again in hot chocolate form.
Okay.
Because I think it's Costa. The last couple of winters has done ruby hot chocolate.
Ah, interesting.
And yeah, I wouldn't immediately place it as chocolate, but it is very nice.
Okay, I really want to try this now. I think maybe there's a hot chocolate place in Rye that like the only thing they sell is hot chocolate, and they have a lot of different kinds, and it's like a fancy coffee shop except for chocolate.
You have a cocoa house near you.
There is a cocoa house in Rye. It's amazing. And I wonder if they have ruby chocolate. I'm going to try that, hopefully. In the after times when we're allowed to go places again.
Soon, maybe.
Soon? Question mark.
Like, if all goes well within a couple of weeks of this episode going out.
We hope. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so I am going to end on a fairly light note, but before I do that, I am going to go a little bit heavy because I couldn't do a whole episode on like chocolate bars and not mention some of the less sweet things about the chocolate industry, shall we say. So yeah, you might have heard about this recently because Nestle, one of the biggest multinational companies in the world, is currently being investigated, among other companies, including Hershey and Mondelez. Is currently being sued, actually, for aiding and abetting the illegal enslavement of children on cocoa farms and their supply chains. Yeah, so they're currently being investigated for that, and there is a lawsuit being made against them by the human rights firm International Rights Advocates on behalf of 8 former child slaves who say that they were forced to work without pay on cocoa plantations in the Ivory Coast, which, as of 2015, produced 2/5 of the world's cocoa beans.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. Apparently, the West Africa is currently the center of chocolate production, or like chocolate growing in the world. So where Central South America was the originator of chocolate, but now West Africa is one of the biggest producers. Yeah, and so unfortunately in the chocolate growing industry, there is a lot of modern slavery and indentured slavery and child labor, which certainly it is difficult to ensure that is in no part of your supply chain. But it is, I mean, I would say it's not a controversial opinion to say that it is legally and morally the obligation of any company producing chocolate from there to ensure to the best of your ability that it is not. And the arguments of most of these companies is that, well, it's impossible to make sure like everyone does it. So, which is like,
but you could try.
Well,
you could try.
Yes, that, and also, like, some companies can and do ensure that their product is completely free of child slavery, and like these companies are mostly small companies, but you can find them. Like if you just search slavery-free chocolate, you will find a list. So yeah, it can be done, and it should be done. And I mean, Nestle has been on the record saying that water as a human right is an extreme position. So I'm not entirely sure that I trust their word on anything, you know.
I mean, I think it's fair to say this podcast is anti-Nestle.
Yeah, in 2000 at like a World Water Forum, they tried to get water access to clean drinking water changed from a right to a need, which is a big difference. So yeah, I mean, you heard it here, Nestle suck. But of course, like they're not the only one. This is kind of a big problem. So I'm not trying to say that anyone should stop eating chocolate. But it's definitely a good thing to campaign against this kind of stuff and to try and get companies to be more rigorous about it and to try and get changes in the law to try and make companies comply with this sort of thing. So you can do that while eating your delicious chocolate. I ate a lot of chocolate hobnobs while reading about this.
Oats and chocolate is just a very good combination.
Yeah, chocolate hobnobs are the king of biscuits. There, I said it.
I have been doing chocolate overnight oats lately.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Also, that is something that really makes my accent come out, apparently.
Well, there's nothing more Lancashire than oats, right?
It's the food of my people.
Okay, so I'm going to end this on a lighter note. Did you know you can 3D print chocolate?
What?
Mm-hmm. There are several chocolate 3D printers available on the market. Now, please do not, I repeat, do not try this at home with a normal 3D printer. It will not work.
I got really excited then because we have a friend with a 3D printer.
Yeah. So chocolate hardens at a much slower rate than the plastic that they use in 3D printers does. And so if you try it with a normal 3D printer, it will it will be a mess, and also you will probably ruin your 3D printer. So these chocolate 3D printers that are available have been developed specifically for chocolate. So they keep it like at the right temperature, they make sure that it hardens at the right rate, and they're all like food grade designed. So they're designed to be used for chocolate. And yeah, so you could these 3D shapes can be printed that are like obviously a lot more complex than you could do with a mold, and it is incredible. I will post a link on the Twitter to some of these. I'll also post a link to the Guardian article on the Nestle lawsuit, in case anyone is interested in that. Oh, and there is a 2010 documentary called The Dark Side of Chocolate that is available on YouTube for free that explains a lot of this stuff. Sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier. So if you're interested in learning more about that, then you can go see that. But yeah, the chocolate 3D printer is here. However, I haven't seen one cheaper than $2,000. They're kind of in the range of $2,000 to $5,000. So it's kind of an investment, you know.
So what we're saying is everyone listening should become a patron at the highest level so we can get a chocolate 3D printer.
That's a worthy cause, getting bread and thread a chocolate 3D printer. Yeah, I mean it's quite a remarkable machine. You know, hopefully this is the first wave, and in the future the chocolate printer will become much more affordable, and then we can all know the joy of taking any terrifying CAD file from the internet and downloading it into chocolate form.
Chocolate D&D miniatures, though.
That would be incredible. And then one of them gets defeated, you can just eat it. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Ah! So many possibilities.
So this is like creeping over into my other podcast now.
Everything becomes D&D eventually.
It does with me. It's a problem. I'm serious. I was reading about like the wild side of medieval Catholicism this morning. I was just like, I could implement that.
In D&D, be clear.
Yeah, I am very much not the Pope. I have several disqualifying factors.
I'm glad we've made it crystal clear on this podcast that Liz is not, in fact, the Pope.
This podcast is not affiliated with the Vatican. But that does lead me nicely into the local larder.
Excellent. So what are we learning about today?
So this episode is going up pretty much the Sunday before Easter, I believe. If I'm right about when Easter is, it moves. The cheeky little scamp. But I want to talk about Simnel cake.
Okay. That's exciting. All I remember about that is that it has the little balls on top, right?
Yeah, it has either 11 or 12 balls of marzipan on top. It's normally 11, which represents the 12 apostles, apart from Judas.
Ah, of course.
Because
you wouldn't want to have Judas on your cake.
It's cancel culture.
Cancel cake.
But yeah, so it goes back to the 1200s, making a fruitcake with marzipan if you can afford it for either Easter or Mother's Day. It kind of changed from Mothering Sunday to Easter. I might as well mention Mother's Day while I'm here, because Mothering Sunday used to be when apprentices and domestic servants used to go and visit their family and their mother church, or the church where they were christened.
Okay.
Sort of around Easter time, just going back to the family and being like, hey, everyone's still alive? Great.
See you next year.
And because this is, winter has finished, but you haven't really been able to harvest that much yet. It's also not a lot of food left. Which is a possible reason why it's generally a fruitcake made with dried fruit.
That makes sense.
In more modern times, it often also contains things like brandy, spices, candied peel, and things like that.
Okay, so kind of like a Christmas cake?
Yeah, it's a Christmas cake, but for Easter.
So Christmas cake, but wearing a different coat.
One made of delicious, delicious marzipan. So the name Simnel cake probably comes from the Latin word similla, for meaning like fine flour, which probably then became Simnel, which in the 1200s just meant fine white bread. But is also the etymology of semolina, which I just enjoy because, yeah, I like etymology, and so everyone listening has to listen to the etymology.
Well, that is what having a podcast is for, right? It's for getting to talk about whatever you want, and there's nothing anyone else can do about it.
Yeah. So there's different versions of Simnel cake. The most well-known ones being in Devizes, which is in Wiltshire, I believe, which is generally coloured with saffron and made into a star shape. Shrewsbury, which also tends to have a saffron crust. And the most famous, the common one now, which is from Bury, which is where I live, contains nuts, cherries, and candied peel, and that's the version with the 11 marzipan balls.
Oh, so that's a berry thing.
Yeah, I don't know why that's the one that became widespread.
Okay. Oh, that's not fair. You have two famous regional things now.
I mean, you could also argue that Eccles cakes are quite famous, and they're from fairly near to Bury.
That's true. The Greater Manchester area has a lot of foods.
What can I say? Lancashire is just great. But yeah, there's a folk etymology, because of course there is, which attributes it to Lambert Simnel, who was a pretender to the throne, who pretended to be the, I believe, nephew of Edward IV after the crowning of Henry VII. Lot of Kings, Wars of the Roses, everything's very confusing.
Uh-huh.
But basically he ended up being pardoned by Henry VII and became a cook. He worked in the royal kitchens, and later became a falconer, which is cool. But there's a story that he invented the Simnel cake. But he was born in 1477, and there's references to Simnel cake in the 1200s, so he definitely didn't. But it's a fun story.
That's amazing. Oh, the folk story is always better than the real story.
Yeah, I mean, Lambert Simnel's just an interesting person, I think, just because of this pretender thing, because apparently they were originally going to present him as one of the princes in the tower.
Oh, that's why I know about that vaguely, because the name was ringing a bell, and I think I have read about this, but I couldn't remember what sort of time it happened. But yeah, I definitely remember a thing about, like, there were a few people pretending to be one of the princes in the tower.
Yeah, which I think it didn't generally go well for them. And there's the theory that, you know, the Tudors got rid of the princes in the tower and blamed Richard III, which is possibly why it always ended so badly for them. But at basically the last minute, the guy presenting Simnel, either Richard or William Simons or Simmons, because medieval spelling, decided to go for, he's actually Edward IV's nephew instead, which might have saved his life, honestly, given how it went for other pretenders.
Wow.
But yeah, not really relevant, but it's a fun story, and it's not food-based, so when else am I going to get to talk about it on here? So yeah, that is Simnel cake. It is interesting that you have Christmas cake and Simnel cake, which are virtually identical apart from the marzipan, which, as we've learned, was only because someone in Lancashire decided to do it. But they are seen as very different things. But because you also get fruitcake at weddings traditionally, it's like fruitcake is just like, it's Christianity time, have some fruitcake.
Yeah, I think it just is that. A lot of traditional British celebration cakes are just the fruitcake in disguise. That's just like the only fancy cake we have.
But we did put all of the fancy stuff in.
Exactly. I think that's why, because we didn't
sugar,
leave any of...
There's fruit, there's citrus peels, there's brandy, there's maybe saffron if you're from Devizes.
Maybe some almonds.
Oh. I mean, that's where marzipan comes from, isn't it?
I mean, we didn't leave any of the fancy stuff for different cakes. We were just like, let's put it all in one, and it should be twice as good, right? And then we got fruitcake, which nobody likes anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's partly changing tastes and partly just like, we have options now. We can have fancy things that aren't everything in one cake.
We can get fruit in the winter now.
It's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that is Simnel cake.
It went places I didn't expect it to, but I like it.
If you want to get us one step closer towards a chocolate 3D printer, we do have a Patreon. As I said, it's just Bread and Thread, where you can get access to recipes. If you give us enough money, we'll make you your own special bonus episode, and we have a Discord server.
We also have a Twitter account at Bread and Thread, where you can find out what is coming up next, see what we're up to, and let us know your unpopular chocolate opinions.
And if you don't tweet and you want to yell at us about chocolate anyway, which I welcome, you can email breadandthreadpodcast@gmail.com. It's fine. I'm the one that checks the emails. Hazel doesn't have to see the yelling.
But I'll probably hear it.
Oh yeah, I will communicate it.
If we get any angry emails in all caps, can you just shout them at me over the phone?
Definitely.
Awesome.
So on that note, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time, which I believe will be Nick guesting to tell us about Italian courtly dress manners, which is not grammar, but you know what I mean.
Fancy clothes. Yeah.
Yeah.